All right, and we are back. Another edition of the West Coast Heat Check. Deits, Wakanda, and Big Skinny join the host. I am the host, Nick Rice, Robert Deiters, Brandon Boykins, Stephen Hughes. Stephen, come on, man. What are you wearing? What are you wearing?
I'm an ASU grad, but I do work for the University of Arizona, so I'm teetering along both sides of the rivalry here. But nothing much I can really do. But
well, unfortunately, Stephen has been muted for the second half of this. I'm just kidding. Oh, we have a muting battle going on. All right. Anyways, Steve, go ahead. Finish your point.
Yeah, I got to teeter along both lines, so nothing I can really do about it. This is like one of the clean shirts that I have still in my room, so I had to pull it out. So.
Excuses.
Yeah, every now and then Zoom happens to mute certain people, and there's just nothing I can do. We're going to address the top 5 players in the history of the Brooklyn and the New York and all those other Nets. That's going to be a fascinating topic. We're going to bring back another edition of the Face-Off with the Deits and the Big Skinny, and also we'll touch on who have been the hot and the cold teams and players across the NBA the week that was going into mid-March. We're already wrapping up the first half of all games of the season. All-Star break is over. It's exciting, and we'll break all of it down so far in the preview of the second half moving forward. Next week, Thursday, March 25th at 3 Eastern is the trade deadline. We saw 2 trades already transpire today, 8 days before the deadline officially is placed, including the headliner, which was Houston and Milwaukee with the trade of PJ Tucker to the Bucks in exchange for DJ Augustine. A couple other players and picks, including a first rounder, was tossed around in 2023 back to Houston. Robert Deiters, this is a pretty significant trade.
Yeah, PJ Tucker going to the Milwaukee Bucks is going to make them even more of a contender. The DJ Augustine experiment didn't really work out as planned. He was a solid Magic, went to Milwaukee, wasn't what he was, and Drew Holiday has really been their true point guard. I think getting Tucker in there helps them down low, especially with Brook Lopez, solid man off the bench. And he really wanted out of Houston. He expressed that he wanted out, and he got what he wanted. And we see Victor Oladipo being the next guy out of Houston. That's going to be interesting with what young talent Houston may get in the upcoming trade deadline. I think DJ Augustine won't really be a part of that plan necessarily, but I mean, congratulations to Milwaukee. They won this trade.
Yeah, actually, PJ Tucker, we're going to bring in Brandon Boykins, otherwise known as Mr. Wakanda, for this episode tonight. Glad you can join us. It's another fresh face of the West Coast Heat Check. PJ Tucker was being tossed around with rumors with the Lakers just a little bit, more so, the big fellas like a JaVale McGee and Jared Allen. PJ Tucker, that adds some sharpshooting for Milwaukee, and with Giannis out there, they desperately need it.
I would definitely agree. So with how limited they are with shooters after losing Wesley Matthews and a couple of other names to their roster, then I think PJ Tucker was an incredible asset for them to pick up, especially in the trade deadline. And with the Lakers whole situation within the trade deadline, for any of the Laker fans out there, I would say not to pay too close attention with the trade deadline because of how close they are to hitting the cap. With the Lakers team as it is, I would see them making more of a splash after the trade deadline with more of the buyout market, with checking on terms with Hassan Whiteside, possibly JaVale McGee, same with Andre Drummond and a couple of other players and names before it was names like Trevor Ariza, PJ Tucker floating around. But yeah, with again going back to PJ Tucker, I would say that was an incredible pickup for the Bucks, especially, like I said, for hitting the postseason with Brooklyn looking as powerful as they are now. all the help they can get shooting wise.
Steven, what are your thoughts of this trade?
It's just all about depth, really, across the board. You look at the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Those are the four teams that are contending for a NBA championship because they have so much depth on their roster. And Milwaukee just added a key piece not only for the 3-point game but for their defense as well. I mean, PJ Tucker, he's in NBA standards, he's a relatively short guy at 6'5", but he's your go-to guy when you need someone to go up defensively against your number one guy. And I think that's what the Nets the Bucks just did when it comes to playing the Nets. He'll probably be the guy that'll go up against James Harden, his former teammate, if they were to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. Because, I mean, with Durant out, Harden's had to carry a bigger load, and he's been such an impact out there for this Nets ball club. So I think this is a big pickup for the Bucks. I agree with what Brandon said, and for the other players involved, they're just rotational guys at best. But Milwaukee, they're big winners in this. And for Tucker, I mean, I mentioned this in previous episodes that Tucker would be an impact somewhere else, where there's on a playoff contender, because Houston just simply is not it this year or for the foreseeable future.
And meanwhile, the other trade of note, Oklahoma City's Trevor Ariza is swapped out for Myers Leonard of Miami. That's an intriguing, considering the sort of headlines that were going on around Myers Leonard, an intriguing trade as well, Robert.
This Trevor Ariza has been moved around so much. I don't even know. I didn't really know which team he's been on in the last couple months. He got, I think, went 3 or 4 different teams just trading Trevor Ariza. The move confuses me with the Miami Heat because I do have Andre Iguodala too, who's also a veteran at the same position he's at. So maybe they, and they have Udonis Haslem, who's been to the finals many times, and he doesn't play as much. So I'm confused whether, is Ariza going to play? Is it just going to be a guy that sits on the bench? Was he there for? Is this just a money move at the end of the day? But Myers Leonard has gotten so much criticism in the last, couple days over, his comments over the Jewish community, and it's sad at this point. He's gone through, so much. Like he got banned from Twitch and a couple other sites, and I don't know how he's going to go into a different environment with everything going on currently, especially with a new team. If he's going to be viewed differently, what the Miami Heat organization thought of him, I think it's going to be very difficult for Myers Leonard to go in a whole different culture after what has happened as of recent.
Brandon?
And I guess to say, I mean, you hit all the bullets on the head with that one. But yeah, I would say it's a similar question with Trevor Ariza is because of how OKC, or I'm sorry, not OKC, was looking for a trade similar to Houston with PJ Tucker, where they were almost dead set in the ground of we're looking for something or at least someone in return for this player. But I guess the Miami Heat just happened to be that team to answer the call as far as blinking when it came to budging on who's ever getting the trade.
For me, I think this trade is simply for OKC to just get another draft pick. I don't see Trevor Ariza really in the plans for Miami Heat. And it's already been reported that for Leonard, he'll not be in any type of future plans for OKC. So for the Thunder, their window, for the last season or so has been closed in terms of making a real run in the playoffs without KD and Russell Westbrook. So now it's just okay, let's add draft picks to our stockpile and just focus on the future. And that's what that's why I kind of got from this trade, because Trevor Ariza, he opted out of the bubble in Orlando last year to look out for his family. So I mean, you really think he's just going to jump back into action because he's on a playoff contender? I mean, he hasn't played in over a year. So again, this is just simply about the Thunder getting another draft pick for the future.
Yeah, none of the teams that we mentioned are in the mix for the 8 seed, hunt for the 8 seed. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So we're sharing a screen. Let me figure this thing out real quick. Okay, come on. We're going to share the screen of the high-tech PowerPoint that I put together. There we go. Buy or sell. NBA standings is usually what we put in for our second segment, but because there was so little movement this week, we figured that a buy or sell segment would be a more interesting and a more appealing conversation, especially considering how tight this conference is. The number 8 seed Mavericks, as of this moment, this broadcast, are 21-18. That could go up or down based off of the game they're playing tonight. So we start out west. These are the 4 teams that would be in the play-in round if the NBA regular season ended today. That is the tournament where 7 plays 10 and 8 plays 9, if I'm not mistaken. And then then the winner would play the other winner, and those would be the 2 teams that go into the playoffs. So I might have that a little bit mixed up, but the point is those 4 seeds are very important, 7 through 10. Deits, I'll start with you. So we're going to go just down the line here. You can talk 7, 8, 9, and 10 quickly what you think. And before I hand it off to you in terms of who you buy or sell, the SOS is an abbreviation for strength of schedule. And then the rank is in the NBA based off of how easy it is. And just for clarification, the Spurs, only the Lakers have a schedule that features a worse win-loss record of all their opponents. Basically, they have the second easiest remaining schedule based on opponent record. So, Deits, of these 4 teams, who are you buying and who are you selling?
Definitely going to buy the San Antonio Spurs. As I've mentioned on every broadcast, DeJounte Murray's my guy. I love DeMar DeRozan. They unloaded LaMarcus Aldridge. Thank you, because he did not look like he wanted to play basketball out there. He looked very unmotivated, especially with the second easiest schedule. I think San Antonio, after not making the playoffs last season, are going to come back in. I think they're going to secure that 7th seed. Unless that Dallas Mavericks looks really strong, then I buy San Antonio into the 7-10 bracket. I see them either as the 7th or 8th seed competing with Dallas. Dallas has been hot. We saw them kind of be on the low end in that 10th, 11th seed, and now they're starting to get hot. They're starting to figure it out. And, Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis are coming together, figuring out with Tim Hardaway. With Dallas, it's so hard for Kristaps Porzingis to grow when he gets injured so many times. I actually watched an interview with Mark Cuban discussing how frustrating it could be with Kristaps Porzingis, but they believe in him. They believe in this guy. They traded for him to grow and to become a better player and grow with Luka Doncic. Now, if they look at the end of this season, they think they got to add another piece. I think Dallas could get that 3rd piece. It's been a while. It's been since the Dirk, Jason Kidd kind of era that they've been that good. And I think Luke is going to buy them into this playoff bracket and make a, big time. I think they're going to be that. I think they could definitely hit that 7th seed if they keep kind of a hot. I know they lost one, but I think if they kind of keep a hot streak going, I could see them being that team. Now, going on to the 9th seed Golden State Warriors, they have looked very iffy. They've either gotten blown out or they've had a close game. And they did blow out the Houston Rockets, but that's not saying much. Let's be honest. Golden State's going to is a team that's hard. I mean, I'm a Warriors fan. I mean, I can just prove it behind you, but it's a hard team to buy. I'm not going to lie to you. I think this is a team that I could see possibly selling, but I'm going to buy them in. I think they're going to stay hard with that 9 seed. I think the Golden State Warriors are going to stay in that 7 through 10 bracket, but I think they're going to be that, I think they're going to be that 9 seed team, and that's about it. I think 7th and 8 switch between the Spurs and Mavericks. Now with the 10 seed, that's where it gets fun. I think Memphis is going to keep losing. I don't think they're going to make that 10 seed, so I'm going to sell them, and then I'm going to go with, I think the Pelicans get in this 10th seed. I don't know why, but I have a feeling that Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson have a great team in front of them, and I think they're going to make a splash. And I think Lonzo Ball is going to go in this trade deadline, and they go get a big, kind of a solid, more of a solid piece. I wouldn't say a big time superstar or anything, but they get a piece to kind of push them in that 10th seed. So I'm going to only sell the Memphis Grizzlies out of the 7 through 10. I'm going to put in the New Orleans Pelicans.
All right, Brandon, what are your thoughts? Are you buying all these guys, or are you selling some of these teams?
To be honest, I'm agreeing with our boy Rob. I mean, he hit it right on the head with how Spurs have been playing. Same with the Mavericks. I think that's going to be an interesting battle to see who, will either run away with the 7th seed or stay where they're at the 8th. So that's, I think, going to be a very the 2 most interesting teams to watch out for the Warriors. I think it's the same thing, but with I think like their biggest issue right now is consistency. It's still just trying to figure out with Andrew Wiggins whether he's actually going to be able to be that third option for them. Whether he's going to be able to keep scoring the 15, 18 points, or if he'll just be in a huge slump for the next couple games and score 6. Or just 2. And for the 10 seed with the Grizzlies, I think they're still trying to, I think, figure out who they are as a team with Ja and some of the other players there. I think they have something, but I think with how incredible Zion and Ingram has been playing with the help of Lonzo, I think they have a better shot, I think, at hitting the 10th, maybe the 9th, if they go on some amazing win streak. Then I think they might have a shot at the 9th. But I would agree with Rob that I'd switch the Grizzlies and Pelicans out.
Interesting.
I'm buying every team on this list. I'm not buying. I'm selling the Pelicans. They don't play defense. I mean, look what just happened last night. We'll talk about it at some point later on the show. But they had a substantial lead on Portland, and the Portland's a good team. Portland's if New Orleans were beating Portland last night, I think I would have had a different opinion. But for them to get to blow their lead and for Damian Lillard to win it, it just kind of confirms my argument that they just don't have a defense. They don't have, they're too reliant on 2 guys, that is Zion and Brandon Ingram. You shut those guys down, you shut one of them down, then these guys don't really have the playoff contention experience. I mean, Brandon Ingram in his time during LA, they were mediocre, and then during his time here in New Orleans, they've been mediocre. And then for Zion, he's a 2nd-year guy. He's carrying this franchise, and I have more question marks surrounding the Pelicans than the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies, they were in the playoffs last year. And for that reason, I'm sticking with this 4. They'll probably get scrambled a little bit. Maybe the Warriors be a 10. If Steph's going to miss a few games, that's going to lose a little momentum for the Warriors. Maybe the Mavericks go up to a 7 seed. Maybe even the Trailblazers go down to a 7 seed. Who knows? But for these 4 teams, I think that they're going to be playoff teams come May. So I'm all buying all 4, selling the Pelicans.
And Steven, to go off your point, I think the 1 through 16s in the Western Conference, I think they're all just. I think those 6 teams are settled into the playoffs at this point. It's just finding out where they're going to be seated. But that 7 through 10, I think that 10 seed is where it's going to get a little iffy. Later on in the season, in those last 10, 11 games, I think is where the fun's going to happen.
Yeah. It is interesting that the Warriors have the 28th easiest. So basically only the Mavericks and one other team, I forget what that team is, has a harder schedule. So Golden State, as inconsistent as they are, I mean, they've got to figure it out. Otherwise, a team like Memphis can take them over. That's why I'm teetering on maybe even selling Golden State despite the winning record. This isn't quite as fascinating as the NCAA tournament bracket challenge, but we're doing the best we can to try and create some drama for the 8 seed in both the West and East. Deits, looking at the East, the Bulls, the easiest schedule of these 4 teams. Pacers have the hardest. But right now, the team that currently is leading the way out of these guys are the Atlanta Hawks. What are your thoughts of these teams?
I still think, and I think we saw Miami Heat kind of be hot now. That the Miami Heat, I think, has proven that they're a top 5 team now in that Eastern Conference. I still can have 5th and 6th seed. Still doesn't make me feel any better. They could drop to the 7th seed easily. I'm gonna probably sell a lot. I'm gonna sell a lot on this one. But the Atlanta Hawks, man, what an interesting team, to say the least, with Trae Young just like literally being the guy and all the time. I'm gonna say Trae Young literally carries that team. I say I buy them in that I don't think they're gonna be the 7th seed necessarily, but I could see them being that 8th or 9th. We talked about the New York Knicks. I buy the Knicks being in this bracket. They were almost a 5th seed like a week ago, and then they dropped all the way to the 8th seed because now they're back to a losing record. They lost a close game to the Brooklyn Nets. That travel call on Julius Randle, which I believe it was a traveling call, but that's a debate for another day. I'm gonna buy the Hawks and the Knicks. It's so hard. I mean, you see a lot of teams with a 17 wins this season too, and you see the Pacers at the 10th. With the Bulls, I think I'm going to sell them because at this point I've been hearing a lot of rumors that Zach LaVine may be leaving and might be going to the Miami Heat and a couple other destinations. So I'm going to sell the Bulls on this one. And then with the Indiana Pacers, Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis leading the way. I think I'm gonna buy the Pacers. I think they're gonna move. I think they're gonna move up to the 9th, and then seeing the rest of it, how it plays out at this point. Toronto's been on a 6-game losing streak at this point, and Kyle Lowry might be dipping. Actually, so Nick, I guess my question is: are we gonna sell or buy out of that 6th, 5th, and 6th seed too? Can I kind of switch that around a little bit? Because the way I look at it is like you know what I mean? Like,
blown right now, man. My
mind's blown too.
Talking about
like, I think I'm gonna sell the Bulls, and if I had to pick a team that could possibly sneak in it, I'd say Cleveland. I know that's a shot out of the dark, but Cleveland may have a shot to maybe get in this even without Andre Drummond. I can see Jared Allen. I can see Steven's face right now. He's probably like, what the heck are you picking right now at this point? I know I'm a little crazy, but I think I'm going to buy the Hawks, buy the Knicks, sell the Bulls, buy the Pacers, and I'm going to buy the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Wow. To be honest, I don't really know what to say on that.
Hey, me neither, Brandon. You and me.
I would say that in this situation, I'm not gonna agree on the Cavaliers take. I'm just gonna.
Why not? Why not?
Leave that where we're sleeping.
Because they're awful. The Cavs are awful.
They got Jared Allen.
I mean,
take out my right thumb and they'd be better. God.
I mean,
it'll
probably
I'm gonna have to mute you again.
It'll help with their sales tickets. I mean, it'll be like, oh well, we have another body kind of in the stands, but but their record, I don't think that's going anywhere. But again, I would say I'd buy the Knicks just off of that loss. Which again, I don't think it was travel, but like Robert said, it was a topic for another day. And I would definitely say Yeah, I would definitely buy the Knicks, buy the Hawks, the Bulls. I don't know. I think I probably buy or no sell. Just because again, the just off of the speculations off of what's going on with Zach LaVine, because we don't know if that man is either going to be traded or if he's just going to leave. Because I mean, that man needs help. Like that man needs help drastically. And with the Pacers, that's another team I'm buying. But I think the Knicks, I think, probably have a better shot at getting in, slipping in either into the 6 or maybe into the 7 spot. Because the East, I would say, is more of a shamble than it is in the West, where it's almost a lock.
Wait, Brandon, I have one question for you then.
Mhm.
So Toronto Raptors, they're on that 6-game losing streak, 17-23. Fred VanVleet being their, leader in points per game. Can they possibly get in that 7 through 10?
I would say so.
Would you buy him?
I would.
That's my point.
To be honest, I buy them just because of over the Bulls. If they do end up slipping down to that 10th spot under the Pacers, but yeah, I would definitely buy the Raptors over the Bulls just because of the fact that Zach LaVine himself is scoring 30 to 40 points almost a game, it seems as if, and they're still losing by like 28. So again, that man needs Jurassic help, or he should just do the right thing and just move on and leave. So yeah, I definitely buy the Raptors over the Bulls.
I mean, I agree. I think that for the Bulls, I think for the Bulls and the Raptors, it'll be tighter than people expect, especially if Zach LaVine, listening over to Robert's rumors of LaVine possibly leaving Chicago. If LaVine stays and sees out the rest of the season, I could see that it can be just a really tight race between the Bulls and the Raptors. I think the Raptors with Nick Nurse, your head coach, he's got the experience to get over some of the adversity that they've dealt with in the past. This is kind of a similar territory. I mean, you've lost 6 in a row. You got to bounce back. This is a crucial part of the season for Toronto to bounce back. And I think for me, at the end of the day, the Hawks I'm buying, the Knicks I'm buying, but I still have a little more questions than answers coming from the Knicks, because outside of Julius Randle, like, who can really pick up the team on a consistent basis? Pacers will go up to the 9 seed there. I buy them. But if I had to choose today, if I were to buy the Bulls or the Raptors, I'd buy the Bulls based on the fact that they have a couple of key pieces that are just a little bit better, slightly better right now than what the Raptors have. But if LaVine goes, then the Raptors are in for sure. For sure. The Cavs aren't making it. The Cavs suck. The Cavs are awful. There's no way that they should be. I think if there's any team that could actually make a chase from that 12 to 15 spot, it'd be the Wizards, because they actually have talent. They have games to make up from COVID and all. So, I mean, it just would seem more of like the logical choice with the Wizards. They're similar to the Pelicans. They can score, but they can't defend to save them to save their lives. So I think the Wizards, they're a dark horse. The Cavs are done. But I think for me, it'll be between the Bulls and the Raptors, a very tight race to the end for that 10 seed.
Yeah, I like Rob's point of Toronto, though. Even though Washington's an interesting point, I could see the Pacers falling out of that 10 spot based off of how hard the remaining schedule is. So you guys brushed it up briefly, and we have 6 minutes left in our Zoom call here for our first segment. So why don't we go ahead and just do it? Let's just do it, guys. All right, was that a travel or not on Julius Randle the other day in the loss of the Nets? And I'd like to hear first Brandon's point, because I'm a little confused. How is that a travel? Please explain to us fans.
No, well, what I was saying was I don't think that was.
Or you don't think
I don't
it
think
was?
that was a travel. Was just because I think it would have been smarter for Julius Randle as soon as he rose and the ball was slapped and he lost control. I think it would have been smarter to actually let it drop, bounce, pick it back up, and then continue on. But then again, I could see from the refs perspective how he still had enough control on the ball. But I think if all in all, I think if he had slapped it, or I mean, if he had shot it after Kyrie took a swipe at it, I think it drastically would have been an air ball or just anything else. So I don't think it was a travel, but from the rest perspective, I get it. I kind of get
it. I completely agree with Brandon. I think that based on the referee's angle that he was at, I think he made the appropriate call in his opinion. He saw obviously a swipe, but he couldn't believe that if whether or not he got anything in the ball or he actually got a piece of it. And usually when you see something, a situation like that in which a player is kind of guarded up on a little bit, he'll jump and just fall back to the ground with the ball in his hand. So from a referee's perspective, you kind of assume that okay, like he couldn't get the shot off, that's just travel. But when you look at the replay, and that's like the big thing about sports these days. They have the ability to look over replay, and they kind of missed the call there. But at the same time, I agree with Brandon. I think he should have let go of the ball. He had enough space to let it drop, plant his feet on the ground, and then retain possession and then get another shot off. But at the end of the day, I think the ref made the best call possible. And for me, I was an intramural basketball referee for a semester, and that was tough. And think about how the NBA is like 3 times, 4 times that speed that I'm getting from intramural. So that's a tough call to make, but I'm not saying it was the right call, but I'm sympathetic to the referees, which is a rarity to say in really any form of professional sports.
So Rob, before you answer that, intramural team, are you referring to the University of Arizona? I'm a little confused.
Intramural ASU. When I was a student at ASU, I did a little refereeing, a little side money on. I was refereeing those games, and
makes sense.
I thought you were talking about the remedial team that plays at U of A. But anyways, Rob, go ahead.
No, everything is canceled for the time being.
Oh, interesting. Okay, Rob, go ahead.
Man, Steven, it's like if I was from Nevada and I wore UNLV stuff, I would, get a lot of interesting looks, to be honest. But it's okay. That's a topic for a different day.
Some people,
I think the refs should have definitely.
Dangerous life.
I mean, I'd be riding the dangerous life if I wore anything UNLV in Reno, Nevada. I know Brandon could definitely agree with me on that one.
Yeah,
I'm in Tucson though. So like if I'm in Tempe and wearing this, then I assume that I'm gonna get some F-bombs thrown at me. But I'm
pretty sure you're on the moon, but I mean, I guess.
Oh yeah. My bad. I'm on Mars, guys. Sorry. Today was Mars. Next week will be San Francisco. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my take on it is refs should have definitely used the replay and could have checked the play because it's the last 2 minutes of the game. They can go back and check that out. But as Steven said, I think they make the right call at the right time, and they didn't use the replay for a reason. They felt confident in their decision. So, by the way, I have yelled at intramural refs before. So, Steven, I'm sorry if I have hurt intramural refs in any way, shape, or form. I definitely have not helped out with that. So, I saw at least 3 or 4 of my friends get technicals from an intramural ref before. So.
Hey, that was the second chillest technical foul being called I've seen this week. And
no.
I'm sure those of you on the memes know what the first place is. The Brooklyn Nets have had so many incredible players throughout their history. We're going to tell you who are in the top 5. of the greatest Nets of all time. That's coming up next. Thank you so much, Brandon Boykins. We're back after this. This is the West Coast Heat Check. Welcome back to the West Coast Heat Check. Brandon Boykins is now gone. Good riddance. Stephen Hughes and Robert Deiters. Deits, Big Skinny. I'm the host, Nick Rice. So later in this podcast, we'll talk about who are the hot and cold players and teams around the NBA. They'll give you a gist at exactly what's been happening in the week in the association. But first, of course, we have the Face-Off. Yet again, it's the 8th edition of the Face-Off. And right now, Stephen Hughes sports a record of 5 wins and 2 losses, 3 consecutive debate wins. And talking tonight, the Brooklyn Nets, Stephen Hughes, I'm sure, he's got that Julius Irving afro for a reason. He'll put him somewhere in the top 5 tonight. You got to believe it. So, Stephen Hughes, please entertain me about who indeed are the top 5 Nets. And if maybe KD is on, no way.
No, the most recent guy, the most recent Nets player is number 4 on my list. I'll get to him in just a sec. But number 5, I'll start with Buck Williams. He started his Nets career. This is, there's always been the Brooklyn Nets, they're the New Jersey Nets, and they went back to Brooklyn. He was drafted by the New Jersey Nets. He was their first round pick back in 1981 out of the University of Maryland. 8 seasons with the team. He sports the highest rebounds per game mark in franchise history with just a shy under 12 rebounds per game, averaged 16.5 points per game. Throughout his career, all of his all-star appearances, which were a total of 3 of them, came during his time with the New Jersey Nets. He was the Rookie of the Year in the 81-82 season, 4-time all defensive player. So he was able to do on both sides of the ball as the top power forward for the Nets, and he's also number 2 in terms of total points in franchise history. The number 1 spot goes actually to my number 4 guy. The most recent Net to be on my list is Brook Lopez. He surpassed Buck Williams's points leader mark by just 4 points. He's got 10,444. Buck Williams, 10,440. Brook Lopez, I mean, he's, in my opinion, once we have left the Jason Kidd, Vince Carter era, the Nets in the early 2000s, Brook Lopez is by far the best Nets player that's ever worn the navy, red, and white. Their previous colors were the black and white. This guy's an absolute stud. Over the course of his 9 seasons with the Nets, I think that's the most by anyone in franchise history. Averaged 18.5 points, 7 rebounds. He's only had 1 All-Star appearance that came during his time with the Nets. All rookie back in his rookie season. And this guy, he's 10th overall pick. You expect good things out of a guy, not terrific. Brook Lopez, despite the team not being fantastic, and with him suffering through some injuries over the course of his career, he was still able to become, obviously a top 5 Nets player of all time. At number 3, a man who I love going to my PER, my player efficiency rating. The guy who is just above Brook Lopez. He's number 4 on the PER list. He's number 3 on my top 5. It's Vince Carter, Vince Sanity. Spent 5 seasons with the Nets. Was able to go to a finals, I believe, with them, or maybe that was a year before. But still, he was still just an incredible impact on that Nets franchise. Spent really his best years with the New Jersey Nets. If you think back to his Hall of Fame career, like his prime numbers came with Toronto, and that was a harsh falling out. So you would consider him, a big part of the Nets organization. Averaged 23.5 points per game over the course of 5 seasons. Shot about 45% from the field, which isn't bad for a shooting guard, small forward. In terms of all-star appearances, he got the majority of them during his time with the Raptors, but was still carried over that all-star production over to his time with the Nets. And really, that's kind of like the numbers started to peter off once he left the New Jersey Nets. So, and with Vince Carter, I believe he's top 5 in points. Yes, he's number 3, and he's top 5 also in triple doubles. So Vince Carter, Vince Sandy, and number 3. Number 2, this is kind of going up for debate. It's between number 2, number 1 can kind of go either way. It's a couple of Hall of Famers between Jason Kidd and Julius Erving. My number 2 guy will be Jason Kidd. The reason why I say that is, I mean, his numbers speak for himself. His numbers are insane. Over the course of his career, spent 7 seasons with the New Jersey Nets, 14 and a half points per game, 9 assists. He led the NBA in assists per game twice during his time with the New Jersey Nets. Leads the team all time by a mile, by a country mile in triple doubles with 61 of them. He's also in the top 10 in player efficiency rating, number 1 in assist percentage. I mean, he's all over the place with his Hall of Fame numbers. But the reason why I don't put him as number 1 is because he achieved his one NBA title, not with the Nets, but with the Dallas Mavericks. And I think that Mr. Net himself really, I mean, just insane. It is absolutely insane. It's Julius Erving. I mean, you talk about his time in the ABA with the New York or the Brooklyn Nets or however you may call it, but I mean, this guy is Mr. Brooklyn Nets in my opinion. Over the course of 3 ABA seasons, you're talking about 28 points per game. He was a 2-time ABA champion. He won the title in '83 with the Sixers, but his time with the Nets is legendary, and that really defines his Hall of Fame career. That's why Julius Erving is number 1 in my opinion, and that's top 5.
All right, Deits, best of luck.
So our lists are different. It's kind of interesting to say the least, but I use interesting. Well, I gotta stop using that word, but it's okay. It's fascinating with this all-time 5. But to start it off, I want to say
you need that U of A education to learn more words.
I do want to say shout out to Petrovic. I know I would have put him on my top 5, but I mean, RIP, he passed away. He definitely would have been up there if he was alive a little bit longer. But shout out, still one of the best Nets out there, to say the least. By the way, interesting fact: James Harden is 2nd in triple doubles for the Nets, and he's only been on the team for less than a season. Crazy to think that.
Yeah.
Maybe an Arizona State student himself would understand that, but I guess not. It's okay.
Right.
We're going to move on here, though. So Brook Lopez is my number 5 guy, the most recent Net. Now, the interesting part, he was part of that movement with the New Jersey Nets to the Brooklyn Nets, one-time All-Star, All-Rookie team in the 2008-2009 season. Also, he was part of that All-Defensive team in 2019-2020 that was not with the New Jersey Nets, Brooklyn Nets. But when you thought of that team, you really did think of Brook Lopez in his seasons with the New Jersey Nets / Brooklyn Nets, 18.6 points per game, 1.5 assists, about 7 rebounds per game. 3-point percentage was 32%. This was the man that really had to carry his team through those really rough times. They even had one of their worst seasons, unfortunately, with 9 wins, and he suffered through it, and really was that guy. I mean, I watched him at Stanford and going over to the Nets. I didn't think he was going to be as good as I thought he was going to be, but in his All-Star appearance, he averaged 19 points a game, and actually when he was 25, the next season in that 2013-2014, he only played 17 games to average 20 points a game. The man just had a tough career with the Brooklyn Nets and just seemed no playoff appearances just didn't even happen. And when he even was on the team in 08-09, that 09 offseason, Vince Carter actually stepped away from the Nets and he was sent off. That kid, Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, and Richard Jefferson, they were all just gone. It was all on Brook Lopez. My number 4 guy is going to be Vince Carter. Man, he was a fun talent to watch during the New Jersey Nets time. I mean, he was high flying, and I know that's controversy with the Toronto Raptors and a lot of hate towards him, and then it ended up just being a lot of love afterwards. But when he came to the Nets, he made a couple of All-Star appearances. I really love Vince Carter as a Net. I loved watching the days when he was there, and just crazy to think how long of a career he had, how many teams he was with. But one of the most memorable times I believe was when he was a Net, and he was in his prime time. He was really there when he was from 28 all the way to 32 during that time. And it was after they won the NBA, or they did not win. They went back-to-back NBA finals, did not win. But he came after the NBA final back-to-back appearances for the Nets. And that was the team that was going to possibly take down the Lakers or the San Antonio Spurs. Vince Carter came afterwards, and they thought maybe him, Jefferson, Kidd would be that type of team, but ended up not working out. And that's what happened. And also to go with Brook Lopez, he was part of that KG Paul Pierce time. That experiment did not work out whatsoever, and they lost all their draft picks. So Brook Lopez had to go through that as well to be in that all-time five. I think just suffered through a lot of hardship. But I got Vince Carter there. Number 3 is the interesting part because I didn't put him as my number 1 or 2. But I had to go with Jason Kidd. Yes, he's been to back-to-back finals appearances. Did not win with the Nets, but did, as Steven mentioned, did win with the Dallas Mavericks. I do love Jason Kidd. He is definitely, I believe, the best early 2000s point guard. And you could say that with Allen Iverson being that type of guy as well. But I think Kidd was the man to watch. I think he was just that superstar for the Nets. As you talked about, Kidd, they had a chance, man. They really had the chance to win it. But, with the Shaq and Kobe era, Nick Rice knows himself, they didn't stop. They couldn't stop that. And then San Antonio was Robinson and Tim Duncan that really gave them the difficulties. They didn't have that big man, but Kidd was the guy that really, I think, was the true leader in those finals appearances. And I remember when he was maybe going to re-sign with the Nets after those finals appearances, but they got a Richard Jefferson and they got a Vince Carter, and it ended up just not working out. And Kidd had some great runs with that team. It just ended up not in all of scheme of things. The Nets just did not work out. They went from the New Jersey to the Brooklyn. Kidd was just that New Jersey Net guy. Now you'll just remember Jason Kidd as that New Jersey Net alongside Vince Carter. Now we go to the 1980s. We go to good old Buck Williams. He was a 3-time All-Star with the Nets. He was also 4-time All-Defensive Team. He was the Rookie of the Year. He was part of that 1982-1983 All-NBA in just his second season alone at age 22. He was also, 1982-1983, and then he was also on the All-Rookie in 1981-1982. Buck Williams was definitely one of the really big power forwards in the 1980s, one of the more dominant guys. He was all-star in his first 2 seasons, being 21 and 22. That's pretty impressive to say the least. And then not getting one until 25. But man, he was around the team for 8 seasons, averaging 16 points a game and 11 rebounds a game. And his nickname was Ajax. He really was the Ajax guy. Buck Williams in that 1990s. So I'm going to go with, I think Steven knows who I'm going with my number 1. We don't even have to talk about it. We got to go Dr. J. Come on, man. He was dominant in that ABA era. I mean, they went to the finals 2 out of 3 times. They won the finals twice. He was also finals MVP. I mean, he was MVP of that league in the last 3 seasons. And I loved Dr. J. He was the guy that could dunk it from the free throw line. I mean, he was one of the first players that really was like, hey, I can dunk this from the free throw line. He was also behind the back type of guy that could do it dunk wise. He was one of the entertaining guys, and they were learning how to play basketball in that 1970s era. And he wasn't even a part of the NBA until 1996, 1977, when he was with the Philadelphia 76ers and he won a championship there as well. Dr. J was, once basketball actually started getting into things, that's when it got harder for him, but he got adjusted as it slowly went on. He wasn't the type of guy that stayed in that form. Dr. J, I just loved him. I loved his style of play. I loved his game. True all-star and led 3 finals appearances, and they won 2 in that ABA era. So I'm going to go with my boy Dr. J at number 1.
Interesting. All right, great discussions from the Big Skinny and the Deits. I would like to touch a little bit farther on your discrepancy with number 2 and number 3. Steven chose Jason Kidd as the second best net of all time. Not only that, but in his preface to number 2 and 1, he actually was kind of tossing around how close it was between the two and just how great Jason Kidd was. Deits had him down at 3. I'd be interested in hearing the difference in why, Steven, I'll start with you. You thought Jason Kidd was a little bit better than Robert thought, and maybe, if Julius Erving wasn't such a legendary figure, maybe Kidd is the greatest net of all time.
Yeah, and there's definitely an argument you could put in terms of, the thing is with Robert and I, we agreed on Dr. J being the number 1 Nets guy, but in terms of the NBA, when we're talking about franchise history, we're going over like ABA stuff, but if you're looking specifically into the NBA, like Julius's career was defined in the NBA by the 76ers for the most part. But I still think he was such an impact for the Nets organization to get from the ABA to the NBA that that's why he's number 1 in my opinion. But for Jason Kidd to be below Buck Williams is kind of a slap in the face, in my opinion. I understand that Buck Williams had a decent career, 16 and a half and 12 as a power forward. But Jason Kidd, he was like you said it yourself, Robert. He was the true leader of arguably one of the best Nets team of all time. That he was he led the New Jersey Nets to a finals appearance, and that's something that Buck Williams cannot really he can't really back that up for himself. That he was a great pivotal piece to that team at the time, but not as just transformative like Jason Kidd was to the Nets. And you could say, it's like you can counter my argument that it's longevity, Steven, it's longevity. Yeah, Buck Williams played 8 seasons. Jason Carter played 7. Okay, and then let's go also to player efficiency ready, like the PER. Jason Kidd's in the top 10. I don't even see freaking Mr. Buck Williams even remotely close to that argument. It's just it's simple. Jason Kidd, when you think about his Hall of Fame career, you think about the title that he won in Dallas late in his career, and you think about the prime that he was in when he was a part of the New Jersey Nets. So that's why it was always a question of Julius Erving or Jason Kidd at 1 and 2. Buck, that's why I put Buck Williams number 5, man. Like I thought Brook Lopez and Buck Williams are very similar players. The best guy on that Nets team during that era, but they never went anywhere. And the only reason why I put Brook Lopez over Buck Williams is because he topped him in points. Brook Lopez played like an extra season with the Nets, and that's the most in franchise history with those 9 seasons played for the Nets franchise. So I think it's just a little wild to think from Robert that Buck Williams could be number 2 and Jason Kidd be number 3. Just a little perplexing to me for a guy who's looking for his 3rd win.
Okay. All right, that'll do. Deits, what do you think?
In 8 seasons, Buck Williams played the most games, minutes played, most defensive and offensive rebounds, total rebounds in history. The man, field goal attempts, he was 2nd most overall. I can just name off all stat lines, but he is in Nets history. He owns a lot of games, minutes played, field goal attempts, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, blocks. He's top 3 in most of those. Yeah, not 3-point percentages, not assists or anything like that. But also 1970s, 1980s is always going to be a different style of basketball, and we don't have to agree on that modern era. So I'm just saying Buck Williams has solidified himself in history for the Nets.
Can I make one more counter?
Then I get one more counter than if he gets one.
Okay, that's fine.
Because he's wearing a U of A polo and I'm not wearing a UNLV polo because I don't
now you're trying to make the decision. You're trying to make the decision now away from the actual conversation, the argument. And my big piece is, and I like it. I mean, I'm a big PER guy. But let's go over another. Let's go over two different advanced metrics, statistics.
I'm just myself over here.
Buck Williams. Buck Williams is number 1 all time in win shares in franchise history. Jason Kidd is number 2. In terms of win shares per 48 minutes, Jason Kidd's in the top 10. Buck Williams is nowhere to be found. And then for value over replacement, Jason Kidd actually is above Julius Erving. He's at 32.3. Buck Williams is down at 8th, 12.7. It's just, again, it's how valuable Jason Kidd was to the Nets organization during his tenure there outweighs the hell out of what and no disrespect to Buck Williams, he was still a great player, but in terms of the impact for the Nets franchise, Jason Kidd is far out more superior than Buck Williams.
But when it comes to Buck Williams, think about it. Julius Erving was gone. Buck Williams was really just the main guy in that 1980s for the Nets. So there wasn't really anybody else, unless you can name anybody else that could solidify that 1980s Nets. Buck Williams was that guy. It's kind of like
They're
Dr.
irrelevant
J.
back then.
Buck Williams made them relevant. It was more than Kidd that made them relevant in that early 2000s. So the Nets in that early 2000s run needed a big man. They didn't have it. So they lost 2 straight finals in a row.
If Jason Kidd is not on that Nets team during that time, there's no way they make it that far into the playoffs. They don't make it to the NBA finals. It's plain simple. It's plain simple.
One thing I would like to I would like to get your guys' thoughts on. Unfortunately, KD is this season is a total wash for him. So really, James Harden's the question. But really, anyone in this big 3, given 2-3 more years, do you see anyone, and if so, who could actually join the top 5 and take over, according to Steve, and take over Buck Williams, and according to Robert, take over, I'm drawing a blank. Was it Brook Lopez you had at 5? Nevertheless.
I had Brook Lopez at 5. That's correct.
Right. So could you see one of them taking over, and if so, who in the next couple of years? Steven?
I'd probably go with James Harden, with how much he has done for the team. I mean, points, rebounds, assists. I talk about triple doubles and all that, and how Russell Westbrook's are not meaningful because he wants to stat pad. Like James Harden, those are meaningful triple doubles in my opinion. He's a guy that's simply just carrying the team. And he's got talent around him, but he knows that, hey, this is my chance. This is not my team, but this is my opportunity to carry a big role into a possible title-winning team. And if he continues this production and stays with the Nets over, if his tenure with the Nets is like 5 or 6 years, then he's definitely in the top 5 for me, especially if he wins the NBA title.
So you're going James Harden, not so much KD. You don't think Kyrie could ever?
KD missed last year, and then KD's been out this year. You just start to wonder, like longevity wise, what KD's health is going to be like. And then for Kyrie, he's a solid player, really an all-star elite player. But in my opinion, I don't think he really he didn't really prove himself with the Celtics. He kind of proved himself with the Cavaliers in many ways, but I think he's going to be that guy that fills in the necessities that a team needs. More points from a point guard, getting the assists, being kind of like the general out there. And James Harden will be like the superstar. And for that reason, it's not a discredit to Kyrie Irving, but it's just the role that I envision him moving forward. It doesn't put him on my top 5.
if I had to say the most recent player, I gotta agree with Steven too. I think James Harden, he's been one of the most healthier guys out of that three. And what is it? Kyrie had to take personal time away from the Nets until Harden got there. Like, come on, man, that's a joke. At least Harden played with the Rockets as long as he did, and then he was like, all right, well, I went to the Nets. So, and then Kyrie's like, oh, Harden's here, I'll come back. Come on, man, like that's not fair to him. But I don't think I would put KD over him too. I mean, Steve and I can agree. Yeah, he was one of the best Warriors ever because hey, he led it to 3 NBA Finals and won 2 out of the 3. So got to give him credit where credit's due on that one. But I guess to add one more point to this debate, and I'll be done. If Steven wants to rebuttal, I'll give it to him. So Buck Williams actually did make playoff runs with these teams, but guess who were the 2 dominant teams back in the 1980s? And I think Nick Rice can answer this. It was the Lakers Celtics era. And the strongest playoff run that the Nets even made with Buck Williams on the squad was 1983, 1984. And they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and eventually did lose. And then it was the Celtics that made it on and played the Lakers. So I will say that was tough times because, the Nets were in a weird playoff. They just there's always powerhouses in each conference. And it just seems like they couldn't get the job done when they were going against different powerhouses. So I'm saying Buck Williams is just in a different era than Jason Kidd was, but I think Buck Williams did make a strong case in the 1980s during those playoff runs for the Nets. Now, after 1985, 1986, they ended up, that was the last time he made a run. That was the age 25, and then went over to Portland and made his playoff runs over there. But with Jason Kidd, he did say one of his biggest regrets was re-signing with the Nets. And I will say that after the finals, he did say he did regret doing that at the end of the day because he got like a, $6 million, $5 million, $103 million deal, and it ended up not working out, and they ended up shipping him away to Dallas. So,
All right, Steven, for sure, final point. We got to move on.
I got nothing. And just
you got nothing.
Value over replacement, player efficiency rating. Nothing to, Buck Williams. His my argument is never going to take his place on the franchise leaderboards, but the impact that Jason Kidd had for the Nets, and no matter his regrets and all, like he still is gonna be remembered as one of the best. He's gonna be in the conversation with Julius Erving among the best Nets players of all time.
Man, it's an unenviable task to choose who had the better arguments, and both of you had phenomenal arguments. It got a little heated there in the middle. Steven, I got to tell you, I think Jason Kidd is the better choice, but Robert really stuck into the heart those fans who thought that Jason Kidd was better because he said that he regretted going there. Yeah, I got Robert winning this one, and he just muted himself. Robert, you're back in the ball game, buddy. 5-3. That's the first time I've ever heard
3-5.
3-5. I've ever heard anyone actually say, hey, they regretted actually re-signing. Yeah, you think that's not only going to hurt you, that's going to hurt the rest of the team? Yeah, I'd say so. And Buck Williams had a more consistent, longer career, even though Jason Kidd had some serious pop the first 2 years going to the finals. He was there just in the long run. Maybe we don't have the big skinny for the rest of the show, but why don't we go ahead and just speed through this thing here? We do hot and cold at the tail end of every show. Tell me, we all know who's hot, and that's the guy down there, and not so much in a great way. He is fumed. Robert, who's the hot team and the 2 hot players to this week in the association?
I think I mentioned it in that when we were talking about the 7 through 10, but one team that was kind of in that little 7-10 is now kind of out of it. I'm going to go quickly. Miami Heat. They've been hot. Jimmy Butler. Even Dwayne Wade himself, he's looked like he could be an MVP type of candidate at this point if he keeps up the second half the way he's been playing. Players that are actually standing out to me, Steven, this may surprise you. Jordan Poole has actually been playing pretty solid lately. Ever since he's come out of the G League, I think he's kind of proven his NBA worth. He was a first-round pick, and then as a Warriors fan, I wasn't expecting him to do all that great. And he's kind of proving his worth off the bench, and I hope he can't be that guy. Another guy that I want to mention on this Charlotte Hornets team that isn't getting as much mention as that Rookie of the Year candidate, Scary Terry Rozier over there. I think he's been improving, and he's started every game since he's been a Charlotte Hornet. I think Scary Terry is a phenomenal player. I like his style of play. A lot of people thought maybe because LaMelo Ball, he was going to be out of there, but no, Terry Rozier has proven his worth, and I think he's been that guy and has been kind of mentoring LaMelo Ball. So shout out to Scary Terry, Jordan Poole, and that Miami Heat team as my hots.
For me, the hot team will be the Atlanta Hawks, winners of 6 in a row. They're fighting for a chance to avoid that 7 through 10 little playoff play-in tournament. They've been playing really well, and hopefully they keep that up. Tobias Harris and Julius Randle. Tobias Harris and Julius Randle are my two hot players. Tobias Harris has been playing very well. 21.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds. Some solid teams that they're playing against, including Milwaukee, New York, San Antonio. So these aren't cakewalk games that Philly have been playing lately. And then Julius Randle, 23 and 11.5 over the last 4 games. Tough opponents as well: Milwaukee, OKC, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. He's just been having an incredible season. And then let me just quickly go to my cold players and teams. Patrick Williams for the Bulls has been underachieving during his rookie year. And then KCP in his starting role with the Lakers hasn't really provided much production in the wake of AD's injury. Not really helping out the Lakers. And my cold teams, the Raptors, losers of 6 in a row.
Rob?
I'm going to go with my cold team. I'm going to go with the Toronto Raptors. Lost the last 6. They're the worst team in rebounding right now. Pascal Siakam has just I mean, like, yeah, he's averaging 20 points a game, but the man does not look like the player I thought he would maybe be. Fred VanVleet has literally been the leader on that team, and Kyle Lowry is looking frustrated. I think it's going to be his time to go at age 34. He leaves Toronto. My cold player, I'm going to go with Dwight Powell out of the Dallas Mavericks. He started 8 games this season, played in 25. Points per game has been his lowest since the 2014-2015 season. Thought maybe he was going to be a starter, but he's not. So yikes over in Dallas with that one. I'm going to go with the rookie for the Wizards, Denny. I can't say it. I can't say it. I really can't say it, but I've talked to a lot of people that are Wizards fans, and they just haven't liked his production all season. He was in the starting lineup. He was really going to be with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook just to get better, but he's been coming more off the bench, and he's just not being that rookie that he's been an underachieving rookie for the Washington Wizards.
If Houston loses to Detroit on Friday, OKC on Sunday, and then Toronto on Monday, they will have the longest losing streak in NBA history. They're at 18 in a row. They lose the next 3. That's 21, passing 2 teams for the most in the history of the NBA. And by next week's show, they may just have a record, and not in a good way. That's my cold team. If that's not cold, I don't know what is. I have 2 centers that have been underachieving. They're my cold players, Steven Adams and Jared Allen. My 2 hot guards are Zach LaVine and Damian Lillard. Philly has won 6 of 7. They're my hot team. That's Robert Deiters. That's Stephen Hughes. Thank you, Brandon Boykins. We'll see you next week. This is the West Coast Heat Check.